Good evening to the Semester at Sea community. Thank you for joining us once again for the latest installment of our Wavelengths Alumni series. As most of you know, this online series highlights the talents of our SAS alumni around the world and the things that they've done with their lives before, during, and after their SAS experience. Typically, we feature an alum from a different industry, career field every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time here on the official SAS face page. Most of you are alumni, and then you know that one of the most amazing parts of our SAS experience is the impact opportunities, the opportunity to meet with and interact with local communities in the countries we visit. Often those impact opportunities provide an inspiration for longer term commitments to the communities we visit, whether it's an orphanage in Phnom Penh, a zoo in Belize, or a school in Ghana. The SAS presence continues in those communities long after the voyage is concluded. The immediately preceding session of this series focused on one of those long-standing SAS initiatives, the Godfred Foundation in Senasi, Ghana. Most of you are probably aware of this foundation since we've done fundraisings and we've donated books and other scholastic materials to Fred. But this foundation was founded with the assistance of SAS board member Dwight and Barbara Allison, and SAS has been there for many, many years. The Godfred Foundation is building and operating, expanding every year, adding a grade every year, a low-cost, sustainable private school in Senasi, Ghana. In their view, this is a new way of educating children in rural Ghana to help prepare them for success on their national exams, which is critical to their ongoing educational and career opportunities. My name is Elaine Church, an alum of Semester at Sea and a member of the SAS Alumni Advisory Board, and I'm here today with one of the founders of the Semanhyiya project. This was an amazing story coming out of the fall 19 voyage when the girls visited the Godfred Foundation on a homestay that was offered on that program. And Riva, Lizzie, and Tegan decided they wanted to take it one step further and carry on in conjunction with the Godfred's Foundation to alleviate a particular problem that they noticed. Riva, can you give us an introduction of yourself and then some background on what the three of you did?
Hello, everyone. My name is Riva Kedia. Just about me, I studied abroad fall 2019. I met Tegan and Lizzie. Unfortunately, they're not able to join us tonight, but Tegan is an education major and Lizzie is a public policy major, and my background is in public health. And so all of us really brought a unique approach to this issue we saw there. While I was there, I was asking our host mom how girls in the village deal with their period. And she mentioned they usually miss school, or if they do go to school, they don't have proper products. So then they have an accident and leak on their clothes, and that leads to them being bullied, or eventually they normally drop out of school after that point. When Tegan and I heard this, Tegan sat up and said, "We have to do something." And the next day we went and purchased pads to the school. And since then, we've been working on a long-term solution to help menstruation hygiene products in Senasi, Ghana.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about period poverty? I know it's a problem not only in Senasi, but it's really endemic in a number of areas, and the UN has made it one of its priorities. Why don't you explain a little bit more about it and how you're trying to come up with a solution that not only solves the immediate need, but builds a self-sustaining business opportunity?
Awesome. At this time, I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint. Um, can you see this okay?
Yes.
All right. So this is the Semanhyiya project. And as Elaine just mentioned, what is period poverty? Period poverty refers to the lack of being able to afford menstrual hygiene products. This statistic, 1 in 4 teens have missed class due to a lack of access to period products. is a number that's accurate in the United States. So this is not only a global issue, this is affecting us right now. In missing class, you'll fall behind and then it's hard to catch up. And over time, this does lead to females not being able to graduate at the same rates as their male peers. So period poverty affects health. It affects education. It also affects health. When you don't have proper products, a lot of women have to turn to, makeshift products. And this, can lead to infections. You can see these probably wouldn't be too pleasant to use. It also affects economic opportunities. So as girls fall further behind in school, it also limits to what types of jobs they can get and affects them way down the road. So this period poverty isn't just the small thing. This affects every aspect of their life. It's so big of an issue that in 2014, the UN acknowledged for the first time that the lack of menstrual health management and the stigma associated with it have a negative impact on gender equality and made it one of its top priorities. Um, so again, what we did in Sanase, we learned girls often hide their used products and avoid activities in the school. So this is things like girls not wanting to go to gym class or being active in the schoolyard. This also means girls don't dispose of the products they're using appropriately because there's not waste bins in the restroom. We had discussions with the teacher at the public school in Sanase, and she shared that her students complain about infections and which makes sense, but there's not a female health doctor in Sanase. So these girls really don't have anyone to turn to besides their school teacher. And again, there is a stigma that boys boys in their grade can bully them if they have an accident. If girls start to stay home, there also is a common situation where girls will turn to an older male in exchange for pads, and they form some sort of physical relationship. And in exchange of this physical relationship, the girls can receive like treats and snacks and lotions or pads. And pads is one of the biggest products used in this exchange. And so we hope by supplying pads, we can limit how many girls will feel pressured to turn it to this type of exchange. So while we were there, this is a picture of where we were in Sanase. We donated 440 pads to the government school. And once we come back, we really started brainstorming best solutions. I really hit the public health research on what are the best practices, how do we do this the right way, and make sure we aren't just dumping money, but what's a way to really solve this. And so we decided on reusable cloth pads. The benefits of this is it will last 3 to 5 years with proper care. So unlike the disposable pads we just donated, these pads, you can give them once and it'll last each girl a long time. A great thing about these pads as well is there's a nonprofit in Ghana called Days for Girls that's already selling these pads. So we're in a partnership with them. We are going to purchase these reusable cloth pad kits from Days for Girls, and that should get some short-term relief. Long-term, we want to teach these girls in Sanase to sew their own pads. The pads can then be distributed within the school. About 70% of the pads will be distributed. High school girls can sew pads, and 70% of them will stay and be distributed among other high schoolers, middle schoolers, and elementary school girls that need them. About 30% of pads can go to the local shop, and that will create enough revenue to buy more cloth to keep sewing pads. So the goal is that'll be a closed loop system, that'll be a self-sustaining program. We also hope if the girls want it, we'll teach them the skill to sew a pad that they can then sew their own pads, and sell it to trying to get some revenue on their own. We also know period poverty is not a small issue. There's a lot of things it touches on. One thing we care a lot about is education. There's a lot of misconceptions on menstrual health in general, as well as just health. So we feel very strongly on a health curriculum for both males and females to increase their knowledge of puberty and other type things. We also care a lot about sanitation. So there's one well in Ghana, one main well in Ghana. The Godfred Foundation made a second well, and now the Semanhyiya project is thinking of making a third well there, because we know having clean water to be able to wash these pads is very important to them staying effective. And finally, we want to empower the local community to be able to own their own pads, sew their own pads, generate their own income, and really just empower them to be self-sufficient. And that's the Semanhyiya project.
So it's actually pretty amazing. It is a UN goal, but how did you, right at the time, decide to come up with all these pieces? I think it's amazing that you were able to not only make the immediate donation, but to connect with the Days for Girls and really identify a product. I'm sure there were lots of practical issues as you went forward, like what kinds of cloth to use, whether it should be patterned or a single color, or any of those issues that came up that you dealt with?
Yeah, so it was hard. We went to Ghana in October of our SAS voyage. And for the next 2 months, we wanted to do stuff, but we didn't get much progress with the Wi Fi on the ship. But
Yeah.
as soon as we came back, we started making connections. I collaborated with some other entrepreneurs who've done the same program in Zimbabwe and heard this 70% within the school, 30% to the shop was her idea. But that has worked for her school for the last 5 years. She has not had to put any extra money in. So, as far as the patterns of cloths, we've heard darker patterns are preferred for obvious reasons, and that it should be culturally informed. So that's why Lizzie, Tegan, and I will not be choosing what patterns they'll be, but we'll let a local do what designs and patterns speak most to them. Um, so Days for Girls is an awesome uh, organization. It's a global organization, and Anne Little, who was sailed on our voyage, was associated with Days for Girls in California. And so that's how we first got to know about Days for Girls. And since then, we reached out, and I've met with the director of West Africa, the Days for Girls chapter, and she and Fred have now met. So we facilitate a relationship between Days for Girls and the Godfred Foundation. So it's really this joint effort into trying to address period poverty in Semanhyiya.
Well, it sounds as though you've got the whole loop covered. If you're going to actually teach the girl, well, obviously there's an ongoing educational component. And will that be administered through the Godfred Foundation? Are you training the teachers there as well?
Right now, that is through Days for Girls.
Okay.
So that was an issue. I'm a certified health education specialist, but when I was in Sanase, I was asking the teachers, what's health education here like? And they said that's an area we are lacking in, and we've been wanting to find a health educator. So I know that is on their agenda. For the time being, Days for Girls can bring an educator. When they first distribute the pads, they can bring an educator, teach how to use the pads, but also teach, health education and a puberty type talk. Um, and as part of that program, we hope to identify a few teachers that we want teachers to also attend this talk. And then a few teachers who become super passionate and interested, we're then planning to send them to Accra for a few days and get trained themselves to be able to teach health education. But for right now, Days for Girls educator will be doing it.
So one important piece, obviously, is health education, both in terms of helping them understand menstruation and all the implications, as well as the possibility of infection. Another piece, though, if your solution is to create a self-sustaining business of making and distributing the pads, is going to be to teach the girls to sew. And what are your plans in that regard?
That's a great question. It's been kind of a challenge because I originally thought it could be an after school program of just kind of giving an employment opportunity. But we found out that probably wouldn't work for the girls in the village. They're expected at home to help out around the house and with siblings after school hours. So now we had to find a way to make it as part of the school day. So we're thinking of doing it as an extracurricular class, not like an elective class, like gym.
Elective
They have
class.
a gym class, they have a computer class, and they'll just have a sewing class as part of the school day. So it'll be like a school project that's just in this as part of the course. They learn sewing skills, and then down the road in the course, they will be sewing their own products.
Okay. And then in terms of the ongoing production, you said you wanted to distribute to the girls in Sanasi, but also to have a store, right? So how are you envisioning the store will operate? Who will operate it? Who will provide the pads for the store?
Right now, I haven't thought of a physical storefront location, more just I was kind of envisioning like the Girl Scouts model of
Right.
just
Door-to-door cookie
teaching
sales?
door-to-door sales, teaching them their own accounting and record keeping. But they would sew their own pads and then sell their own pads is kind of what I had in mind. And then if there's someone with the skill set and the knowledge there that wants to make a storefront, I'd love to help them. But for now, we're thinking more door to door.
More door-to-door, that makes sense. I was just trying to figure out how you were going to actually do the implementation. It's also interesting that your comment about the well. I would think that the idea of reusable pads only works if there is a water source, and a water source that is independent of the others in the village. Is that the issue here?
No, not independent, just more. Just
More.
that to try to make the walking distance smaller so that everyone can access fresh water equally well. As far as the washing and drying, I've also learned I've been one initiative I want to do is try to implement clotheslines because currently they just air dry clothes on fields, but these fields also have animals that walk on them,
And bugs and
um,
insects. Yeah.
like cows and chickens and goats. So I want to. I think that will be a barrier of trying to make a change like that, but I am trying to clotheslines. I think will be because these pads need to dry well and dry without animals near them. So
Well, otherwise you're creating more problems, right?
yeah.
What about the social sensitivity, right? These are menstruation products. So it's bad enough to have them on that field over there, but if you're hanging them in the village, is that something that's going to require a little bit of village education as well?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of research on involving men in period poverty in general. And what a lot of public health research suggests is involving men in the infrastructure part. So we need trash cans in the bathrooms, we need soap in the bathrooms, we need wells, and kind of involving them on that side has been said to really help decrease period stigma altogether. And
Mhm.
then even having conversations. And a really cool thing Days for Girls has is they have their own curriculum called Men Who Know, and it helps teach men about menstruation a little bit, but also about also covers some domestic violence curriculum, domestic violence prevention, what it means to be a man, and just kind of addressing men aren't violent. You don't have to be violent to be a man. A man is someone who cares and who respects and this, and just kind of addressing it directly. And they've said to have a lot of success with this curriculum. And so again, since we're outsiders, we don't want to come in and implement all these
Impose it, right?
ideas and stuff, but we definitely want to try to start doing the Men Who Know curriculum in the village, but it'll be a slow, gentle process.
And how are you working with the Godfred Foundation? I know that they are expanding the school, I think, a grade at a time. Aren't they up to maybe sixth grade or seventh grade at the moment?
Yes, I think they're up to sixth grade. So we're eager to get these pads in right to make sure all the girls in the Summit Chess School have pads before while they need it.
Mhm.
Um, Fred is a great resource. Fred is very involved. He will be arranging the delivery from Accra to the village, which is a 7-hour trip. So He again met with the director for Days for Girls. So also Barbara Allison is very involved as well. We've sent her papers and resources, and she's very eager to help us out. So it is a collaborative process.
And what about are there high schools in the village, or once, I mean, is Godfred the only foundation for school or school? It's only the private school, but are you going to be interacting as well with with the public high schools if there are such
Yes.
things?
So the picture that while we were there when we donated the 440 pads, that was to the public school. It's called the government school there if it's a public
Mhm.
school. But there is a middle and high school there. Unfortunately, numbers wise, we don't think we'll be able to support all middle and high schooler girls immediately. Um, but I think we do want to still give a lot back to the government school. We are in touch with government school teachers that give a lot of resources. And the Godfred Foundation is also supportive of helping the government school as well. So um,
With
we're
the government?
helping the Semanhyiya school as well as the government school, but they have different numbers. The Godfred school is just a lot smaller.
Right. No, and I appreciated that because it was a private school. I was just wondering if at the moment you were trying to find someone, a class, a curriculum, et cetera, maybe another way to do that would be to see if you could work with the government school and see if they would offer an elective, a sewing elective, or, a health elective that would be, at least consistent with your goals. Is that something that's possible?
Yes. Yeah, we've looked a lot into the cost of sewing machines and handheld versus like the one with the pedal. So I think cost will be the limiting factor, but we're want to help as many girls as we can.
If you had to think about a 10-year plan, what would you think your 10-year plan would be, and what do you think you will count as success in your efforts?
Success would be all the girls, all women in the village um, have period products, whether that is a reusable pad, a disposable pad or a reusable pad. So women of all ages who are menstruating have the access they need. That will be success. Be success when no external money has to come in because it's
It should be
about
self-sustaining once we get the sewing and the sales, right? Yeah.
yes, that's the goal.
Now you sailed in fall of 19, and you probably, the timing of this couldn't be worse, right? Because you came back and then everything shut down for COVID. How did COVID impact what you were trying to do here?
It put a pause for like 6 months. Not much progress got done, but I had classes. I had a global business class. I had a health disparities class, and so for college, I had to do these class projects, and for my class project, I did the summit trip project. So I also got to workshop it with another team at my university, and so that kind of gave it the momentum again to keep growing.
Well, that was a wonderful idea, even though you've not been able to go back. What are you finding in terms of the ability to actually transmit funds or supplies to Ghana? Is that is that an
That's actually our
issue?
biggest holdup.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
we are struggling to transfer funds through Western Union to Days for Girls right now. That's a barrier we've had in place. But Lizzie should be back on it this week, and we're hopeful we should be able to transfer that soon. But it has caused some delays.
I know the Godfred Foundation sometimes finds that when physical objects or supplies or books are sent to them, they don't always arrive. I didn't know if you were experiencing the same kinds of issues.
Thankfully, we haven't sent physical products abroad yet. However, we did get an email from someone who knew Ghanaian customs
Mhm.
enforcement, and they said things like pads, if you ship pads to Ghana, they'll probably never reach the girls because the custom officials will keep them for themselves
Right.
because they're really valuable.
Well,
So
that
because
was
of
the
that, we don't think we're gonna ever ship pads ourselves.
Yeah, that was the problem we had with books. The same thing. We were concerned about that. So you've got it. You've got the core problem, which is period poverty. You've got the institutional problem. How do you provide these educational services? And then you have this collateral issue, which is the inability to actually just directly deliver anything. But that makes the idea of your self-sustaining model a much better idea, right?
And we love the idea of supporting a local community, a local economy too. So we'd rather have the money and buy the pads from someone locally in Ghana than buying it in the States and shipping it. One, it'll
And
be
the same,
cheaper to buy it in Ghana, and two, it's just better
right. And the same
ethically.
thing long term, right? For the
Yeah.
fabrics that you're going to use, if they're a Ghanaian product, it's supporting the Ghanaian economy as well, right?
Yes.
So it's probably doing more there. So that's pretty good. Are there other issues that I didn't think of, or topics or comments that you want to add?
I think we covered so much.
Okay.
Um,
And are
I think
you,
the relationships, it is kind of like some girls are turning to essentially prostitution for lack of pads, and so we are really hopeful that just by having these and also giving them a way to have income if that's what they need will really empower them to go on to have careers and do whatever they need to do.
it's interesting because I'd heard a lot about the dropping out of school issues. I guess I'd never before made the prostitution connection. And I think that's pretty appalling. I don't think there's any American girl you talk to would think of becoming a prostitute in exchange for, you know, menstrual pads. That's just a pretty shocking concept, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, yeah. I it's pretty common globally, unfortunately. Um, and I honestly would say I don't think it's that foreign in the U.S. either. I think some people in hard situations do what they got to do, but we're hoping to provide an opportunity that they won't have to do that if that's not what they want to do anymore.
There you go. Do you or Lizzie or Tegan envision getting back to Sanasi?
We would
And
love to. Unfortunately, COVID hasn't put a definitive date on when, but we all love to go back and plan on going back. The Godfred's Foundation has their own volunteer house, so they have 6 bunk beds ready for volunteers to come and just stay in. So we're excited to go back.
you've all almost all finished college at this point, so you're going to stay in connection and work on this project for the foreseeable future, at least, right?
Yes, yes, this is all of us are very passionate about it. Timeliness is probably not our strong suit, but passion is there and we'll get it done.
Well, you've obviously been finishing up, you know, your school studies and then trying to find jobs and summer opportunities. I get that. What can I know you're working with Barbara Allison as well and with the Godfred's Foundation. What can the rest of us SAS alum do to help you?
So we do have a GoFundMe going on. Our goal is $5,000. We are pretty close to it. Um, so everyone is free to go donate. The more funds we have, the more we can buy sewing equipment for that government school, as we talked about. We could
Mhm.
also build wells to make more access to clean water, and we can send more teachers to get health education certified.
And do
So the
you
more money it is, the more help we can do.
Right. And you envision that GoFundMe staying in effect for the next year or so as you roll
Yeah.
out this project? Okay, so we can put that GoFundMe in the chat, everyone, and please feel free to add it to your list of SAS charities. I think it's a really worthwhile endeavor. Are you aware, Riva? I know this is a worldwide problem, as the UN noted. Are you aware of other SAS projects that also address period poverty, or are you the first under the SAS umbrella at least?
I don't know of any other SaaS projects, but I will say when I was abroad on SaaS in Brazil, I met another girl who was working on period poverty, but she wasn't from SaaS. I just met her on SaaS. So
Well, yeah. Well, when I sailed in 2014, that was one of the UN millennial goals. And indeed, you know, the students had a global studies competition, business projects, what problem you were going to solve. And one of the winning projects was a period poverty proposal. A little different from yours because it wasn't limited to one community. It's probably more like the Days for Girls kinds of thoughts, but that was one of the winning products. So it's certainly an issue that's been around for a long time and is only now getting the attention it deserves. And God, we really thank you, the three of you, for all that you've done. I think it's an amazing initiative. So,
Thank you so much. We love the SAS community, and it wouldn't have happened without SAS. So we're grateful. I'm sure Fred covered this last week, but the Semanhyiya means what if we hadn't met?
oh, right.
And so that's why we named the Semanhyiya project. It's all based on what if we hadn't met, this wouldn't be happening. So it's kind of a sweet story.
No, I meant to ask you that. And what language is that?
That's in Twe. It's a local Ghanaian dialect.
Okay. Well, I think it is certainly the women of Sanasi are going to be very lucky that you did go on that homestay and did meet Fred. It's just one of the many examples of good things that come out of the impact programs, I think, that SAS operates. So I
Yeah.
really commend you for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Do you have any closing comments or questions other than a request for everyone to add to your GoFundMe?
That's the main one. That's all I got. And if anyone else is studying abroad in the future, please do go on Fred's homestay. I think it is really meaningful.
Right. And obviously, if anybody, any of the SAS alumni or SAS students were interested in coming up with a similar project in a different country, you'd be willing to share your expertise and all of that, I assume, as well.
100%. I have a lot of papers and resources, and I think it's important to consult best practices. And so I'd love to help anyone else who wants to do a similar initiative.
It's always easier to work easier and smarter than harder. So yes, everyone would love to leverage all the work that you three have done over the last several years. And I hope that we get rid of COVID and you guys are free to continue and move forward. If there's no last comments, then I want to thank you for spending time with us today and for telling us about the organization. I think, the Godfred Foundation has long been an SAS initiative, and we'll just make sure that the Semanhyiya project gets the same coverage. The two should be inextricably linked in everyone's minds, I think, going forward. For all of the alumni who are listening, we're going to put the GoFundMe for the Semanhyiya project in the chat room, chat notes, or comments, so that you can go ahead and add your contribution if you'd like. And of course, as you probably know, SAS is also a 501c3 organization. And given COVID and given the fact that we again had to cancel our full voyage, gifts of any size make a big difference, and we urge you to think of us and keep us in your charitable giving calls. I hope you can join us again every other Wednesday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time right here on our SAS Facebook page. In fact, the next program is another really good story, I think, that's consistent, talking about SAS commitments and SAS volunteer opportunities. There were 3 students who met on the fall 2001 voyage: Leah McPhail, Jana Murray, and Patrick Burnett. And they became very good friends and kept those friendships live. Unfortunately, when Jana was murdered in 2011, it was a real shocking experience for Leah and for Patrick. Leah and her husband were so impacted because they were so close to Jana that they actually quit their job, sold everything, and then spent up to 2 years traveling the world and volunteering. So Leah and Patrick, who originally met on the 2001 voyage, are going to talk about that and talk about the many things they encountered and the causes and the problems they encountered as they traveled for those 2 years. We hope you can join us for that program as well, which is going to be, again, Wednesday, August 4th. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.